is happening. So I decided to get a live stream in, you know, because I got to get some rest. I got to go to work later on today. Uh, got to finish packing for my trip to Vegas to cover the Haney Lomachenko fight. I will be in town more than likely Wednesday. Definitely Wednesday. So you might see me doing a couple of collabos with people, but I'll definitely be in town to cover the fight Wednesday. So I'm gonna be in Vegas for a few days. Looking forward to that fight. Um, at the end of the day, I just want to talk about basically the foolishness that go on in boxing, and it's not just with what transpired Saturday with the PBC. I gotta keep it real. Um, I gotta keep it real. You have to talk about the corruption that go on with boxing just as a whole. What happened with Rolly Romero and Barossa? You got to excuse me, my Spanish isn't that good. Um, was just a travesty, and Tony Weeks should be ashamed of himself. If Tony Weeks was slipped the envelope, Tony Weeks, like I said, should be investigated, and he should go before a board. This is why some people say boxing needs a organization. People talk about MMA and Dana White, controlling everything, but at the same time, you get fights made. And what goes on in boxing as well as it's a popularity contest too, and it's just like the record business. It's just like any other sport, and as I was told before, boxing is a business. It's just like the record business to a certain degree, and that's why Al Haymon, it was so easy for him to transition from music into boxing, because you have a lot of politics in boxing as well as music. Listen, there's rappers that can rap just as good as Snoop Dogg or Jay-Z or Eminem, and they're all different type of colors. But you may not get to hear them, and they may not be able to go mainstream because they don't have the right people backing them. It's all about who you damn with and who you affiliated with. And let's just stop playing these games the same way. Like I said, you guys always have an issue with other promotional companies. You got to start calling the PBC out with this kind of stuff. And you got to understand, I know behind the scene what goes on. And like I said, I'm not finna bite my tongue, because at the end of the day, they already done ostracized me. I already been blacklisted. And that's fine. I can deal with that. I can live with that. So I feel like now that I don't have to, hold back, I can truly say what I want to say, because I've seen this before. A lot of times with the PBC, if you don't follow a certain script that they want you to follow, you will find yourself being ostracized. And if you challenge, who, you could possibly find yourself in trouble. But at the end of the day, a lot of these dudes don't want to call this out, because they too busy trying to point the finger at other people. And that's why I got to call them out on their hypocrisy. Just like you had a lot of these dudes sitting up here saying, okay, Eddie Hearn and his dad is racist, saying Bob Arum is racist and all this kind of stuff. And they wanted to play, and you had these fake hotep Negroes that wanted to play the power to the people role. But, they was quick to holler about Eddie Hearn was racist, Bob Arum was racist, Oscar De La Hoya was racist, and all this kind of stuff. And then they was trying to make it look like all these PBC fighters was straight pro-black power to the people. But then a lot of them Negroes is married to everybody but a black woman. And, hey, you love who you love. That is fine. Do you. But at the same time, A lot of those PBC dudes were sitting up here beefing with other black fighters, but sitting up there sucking up to Canelo. Now all of a sudden they finally calling out Canelo because he looks vulnerable and he looks ripe for the picking. Now all of a sudden they got something to say. And you look at the games that a lot of these fighters play and a lot of these content creators play. Like I said, I don't know why you continue to listen to these cornballs that don't be taking their asses to fights. I don't know why you listen to that bald head, goofy, fake Dr. Evil looking Negro. You know, I don't know why you guys continue to listen to the least attorney who been caught in several lies, who contradicts himself on a regular basis, who's nothing but an Errol Spence butt boy. Okay? And that's all he is. Then told lie after lie. And then a lot of times these dudes will take something and half tell the story, just like the latest lie, or the latest narrative they pushing when Errol Spence said, hey, I feel like I got played. Of course, you had these Bud Crawford haters. I'll say, oh, he was talking about Terrence Crawford. Why wouldn't he just flat out say his name? He ain't had no problem saying Terrence Crawford's name any other time. And we know who he was talking about. But then once again, people left out stuff. These people tell half truths on here. I don't think he was talking about Terrence Crawford. I think he was talking about who, Big Al, who's been the primary reason this fight hasn't happened. Because at the end of the day, he just doesn't want to make this fight. It's funny how people sit up here and make it look like that all, all directions have been and purposes have been exhausted trying to make this fight, and that's the furthest from the truth. Now, it was funny when Terrence Crawford said a few months ago that, hey, there was a offer for them to make basically possibly anywhere from $25 to $30 million a piece. And basically you heard Al Haymon allegedly turned down the fight because he doesn't want anybody to touch it. Because basically maybe he wants to scheme off the top and take his, keep in mind, when this so-called hedge fund started, which was supposed to be $1.5 billion to start, the PBC allegedly Al Haymon took $500 million for himself. And at the end of the day, the PBC started off as something that had potential to be big. But then at the end of the day, he didn't want to make big fights and do cross promotion. And that's why Mark Kriegel said what he said, made the remark he made. Because he said, damn, at least them guys fight. A lot of people think this is ridiculous. And I think a lot of times these fighters and these promoters use networks not to make big fights, when obviously they can make big fights. But at the end of the day, you look at Tank versus Ryan Garcia. Listen, we all knew what was going to be the end result. Okay? That's why they made that fight. Anybody with common sense who saw Ryan Garcia fight knew that fight was going to end the way it ended. I said it was going to end the way it was going to go in, but Ryan Garcia, he quit. And it is what it is. Some people say it was smart. Some people say it was weak of him. But nevertheless, Ryan Garcia didn't want any more of that. Because he was about to get laid out. And Ryan Garcia, I guess smart on his part, like, hey, I'll just say he was too much for me this time around. Ryan Garcia is moving up to 140. Now, they may have a deal in place where, hey, all right, so Rolly got a belt and we'll match Ryan Garcia up with Rolly, and in all likelihood, Ryan Garcia could beat Rolly. But then if Ryan Garcia hasn't worked on his defense, he could suffer the same fate. Rolly can crack. He can crack. But at the end of the day, what happened with Rolly this past Saturday was embarrassing, or as Popeye would say, embarrassing, for him to get thoroughly outboxed by a dude who may be 40. They saying he's 40, but if you look at him in the face, he looked like he more probably close to 50, if not 50. And that was embarrassing. And then, like I said, Tony Weeks, he should be ashamed of himself. And like I said, I'm not even gonna lie. I text people begging them, saying, do not let Tony Weeks referee any of your fights. That was just flat out corruption. But like I said, a lot of you dudes sit up here and want to cape and play these games. And I ask myself, this is why I started to distance myself from a lot of these hypocrites and cornballs out here. Like I said, you want to continue to play the pro-black card. You want to continue to play the pro-black card pertaining to Al Haymon. And I say, once again, he don't give a damn about the black community, because Al Haymon spent most of his time sitting up catering and pampering to those damn Mexicans and Hispanic and Latino fighters and putting the brothers on the back burner. Story of America. And that's just fact. Giving them all the exposure on pay-per-view cards. Heavily promoting them, getting them fight dates. But then you got all these brothers that don't get no fight dates, that's fighting once a year. You got to ask yourself, what's going on with that? Why can't you get these dudes dates? And like I said before, you want to play these fake pro-black dudes that will date anybody but a black woman, would want to play the pro-black card. Oh, if you go against Al Haymon or PBC fighters, you some kind of sellout. But everybody, like I said, has something to say about Bob Arum, calling Bob Arum a racist and a white supremacist and all this kind of stuff. But then they turned a blind eye, and Errol Spence was trying to present himself as this, power to the people dude, trying to talk all that black stuff. But then Errol Spence went silent when the story about Jerry Jones broke, about Jerry Jones participating in a Jim Crow rally. And then these so-called pro-black content creators, they disappeared with they fake asses. Nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found. Didn't say a damn thing. Was just silent. But then they want to point out who's supposed to be racist, who's supposed to be sellouts, and all this kind of stuff. But then once again, as I said before, I don't have no problem getting into Top Rank cards. Top Rank has more black media present than anybody else. When I went to go cover the Arthur Beterbiev fight, it was primarily black media covering that fight. But then when you go cover these PBC events, they have next to no black media there. But you guys so pro-black, and I'm going to continue to call you cornballs out. You guys are lame, you fake, and you deserve to be called out because you inconsistent as hell. But I was already told that they be pulling this stuff. The PBC be pulling this kind of stuff. Because like I said, I'm not going to forget how one of them Al Haymon flunkies came at me over a misunderstanding. And I even tried to humble myself and try to apologize to this cornball Negro. So if you listening, you can get the middle finger. For real. You want me to jump through all these hoops that you don't ask nobody else to do. Oh, you need to do this. You need to do this. You want me to go through your 12-step program to be able to cover your fights. Well, okay, how come you don't ask that of nobody else? Like I said before, you sit up there and talk about, you have limited space for media members. But, well, here's the thing. Why you giving certain content creators and boxing channels, well, you would have room for different type of media to be there. But you giving people 4 and 5 media credentials. Why does somebody need to have 4 and 5 media credentials? Why do you need 4 people there to cover a fight? Why do you need 5 people there with the media credential for the same boxing channel? Then you all over the place. You say, "Oh well, we base, well, we base how we issue our credentials. Sometimes we pretty much go by how many views and how many subscribers you got." Oh, okay. But then you giving a person who got a YouTube channel that got 200 subscribers, you giving them media credentials. Then you say, "Oh well, we want to see some of your work." I didn't send you several videos of me interviewing your fighters. But you want to play them games. Like, yeah, if I have an issue with them, I do. And that's one thing that I can agree with as far as that cornball, the other fake pro-black dude, who constantly sitting up talking about he a multi-millionaire and all that junk. Well, millionaires don't have to brag about being millionaires. That's just real talk. And at the end of the day, if you if you ain't really, I mean, for real, let's just keep it a buck. Millionaires don't have to brag about being millionaires because that just sounds kind of ridiculous. Do you hear constantly Bill Gates and other people bragging about how much money they got? It just sound lame. And then you try to put on this facade like you self-made, and we all know that you ain't. And I mean, if you got so much money, how come you only could afford to try to call yourself putting a rack on somebody? I mean, for real. Like I said, dude, you a fraud. And you sat up on your channel and say that you tell the truth. You don't tell the truth about nothing, bro. You a habitual liar. And I do mean habitch. Or should I say a bitch? You are a bitch. For real. And you're lame. But at least you went back to your old ways of stop trying to pretend you some outstanding, uplifting, pillar for the black community. Like I said, you live right down the street from where Nipsey Hussle's store was, and you never took your black ass down there until after Nipsey passed. Then all of a sudden, you such a big Nipsey Hussle fan, but yet you live less than a 10-minute drive away from that place. But I traveled over 350 miles to go, basically patronize that store when he was alive. I didn't wait till he passed away, but that's a lot of these fake dudes on here. And like I said, a lot of these dudes on here is just lame. But like I said, I still cannot get over what happened. But Tony Weeks kind of did this before. I remember the Canelo and Gulo fight where Tony Weeks just stepped in and just called a halt to the fight. And, I remember Canelo, even though Canelo was winning the fight, Canelo hit Angulo with an uppercut. Angulo didn't go down. He just hit him with an uppercut. And Tony Weeks stepped in and called a halt to the fight. But what he did on Saturday, that was just insane. And then if you look in slow motion, a lot of them punches wasn't even landed. So everybody was sitting up there like, what did we just witness? But you dudes want to talk about just certain people is corrupt. The whole sport of boxing is corrupt. And you look at what didn't happen. All you hear is excuses from these dudes. Like I said, Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford ain't happy because of one person, and that's Al Haymon. He has held up a lot of big time fights. Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua didn't happen because of Al Haymon. Eddie Hearn played a role in it, but also Al Haymon didn't go out of his way to make that fight as well. And once again, he should have never let Charles Martin fight Anthony Joshua to where Anthony Joshua could get his second and third belts and then basically hold the division hostage and refuse to fight Deontay Wilder. And he still sounds like he's afraid of Deontay Wilder. But you don't get these content creators talking that. Nah, I already know Fotex who is refereeing. Well, I already know who's refereeing from what I heard. Haney versus Lomachenko. I'm not in liberty to say, but I'll put it to you this way. From what I heard, It's out of Russell Mora, Kenny Bayless, uh, and dang, what's that other dude's name? I forgot the other dude's name, but it might be one of those three. So it's out of those three who's going to be officiating uh, and refereeing Devin Haney versus Lomachenko. It won't be Tony Weeks. And I specifically text Bill Haney and told him, do not let Tony Weeks near that fight. So I already heard who's going to be officiating that fight. So listen, Rolly is just, listen, at the end of the day, Rolly spent so much time in that fight just waiting to land one punch. You saw him loading up. Even you saw him loading up. I mean, I could see, I mean, as a dude observing the fight, okay, Rolly's loading up, trying to land his right hand. And that dude saw it coming a mile away. Rolly don't know how to break a guy down. He don't know how to box a guy. And he was getting touched up, and it was kind of embarrassing to watch Rolly getting outboxed by a dude that old. Because I don't believe that dude is 40 anything. I believe that dude is in his 50s. Because we don't know how old he really is. We don't, they don't display these guys' birth certificates, and we don't do extensive background checks on these dudes. I looked at that dude in the face. I'm sorry, he did not look 40 anything. That dude looked like he more in his 50s, but that's okay. If Rolly got outboxed by a dude that's old enough to be his father, more power to him. But he was ahead on the scorecards. He was well ahead on the scorecards. So they was like, okay, you got to do something. You got to do something. And Tony Weeks just saw the first opportunity to remotely call a halt to that fight if he saw. And I'm telling you, he was told if he remotely hurts this dude, stop this fight. And like I said before, Tony Weeks should be investigated. He need to go before a board. He need to take a lie detector test. And they should be like, until you take a lie detector test and we run a thorough investigation, you not officiating a fight again. I guarantee you he'll start telling then. I guarantee you he'll start telling in. But like I said before, he looked pathetic, and it was just repulsive to see that get did to that guy. Yeah, a lot of people are talking about that. A lot of people are talking about that. And then after the fight was over, Tony Weeks walked out of there, didn't talk to the media. He walked out of there. He didn't talk to the media. The Nevada State Athletic Commission walked out of there, didn't want to talk. But that's what happens when these sanctioning bodies is in bed with somebody, when they receiving, envelopes, or should I say Bitcoin deposits. Because, it's hard to detect Bitcoin deposits. Because, see, a lot of times wire transfers, you can track them. They have a trail. But Bitcoin is kind of hard to track Bitcoin. But like I said, just to see that was just crazy. But you've been hearing about this for a while. like I said, I talked to fighters. When I was asking them, hey man, what's up with you getting fight dates? They was like, hey man, don't say you know whose name. Don't say Al Heyman's name because he a very, he got a lot of power. And the question is, with Al Heyman, why does this man have this kind of pull where he can guide your career and make all the decisions for you? But then, based off the fact he's not listed and registered as a promoter, that's how he gets away with not being in violation of the Muhammad Ali Act. And for real, that's how he gets away, and that's how he gets around that. And I know it's some Al Heyman minions that's upset about this. That's on y'all. That's y'all integrity. Yeah, that's another thing. He has allegedly pending lawsuits. Another reason why he don't come to fights because people are trying to serve him papers. So allegedly, I got to say allegedly because I don't want to, I don't want to get in trouble. But I'm going all in because I just have to tell the truth about them. I'm not worried. I'm not worried about this stuff. Like, what are you going to do to me? You can't get mad if other people is just calling it how they see it with you. And then, like I said, his minions, they part of the problem too with their inconsistency. Like I said, this inconsistent black shit is just horrific. And to a certain degree, a lot of these dudes are laughable because, like I said before, they don't practice what they preach. If you gonna take that stance, you gotta, own up to it. Be consistent. Because like I said, everybody wanted to have their little, beret on and they black glasses and they leather coats on, trying to act like they Huey Newton, Bobby Seale when it pertained to Matchroom and Top Rank. But then when this thing with Jerry Jones came about, then everybody got silent. Or they just made excuses. All you heard was excuses. Or people didn't say nothing at all. I didn't blew these dudes out the water for their lies. And I'm going to tell you right now, if Errol Spence is going against Al Heyman and finally standing up to Al Heyman, good for him. But I'm going to tell you, he may pay a stiff price for that. Because at the end of the day, he going against Al by basically not fighting Keith Thurman. Al don't want to make the Crawford fight. Now, I keep telling you guys that. Whether he believed that Errol Spence could win that fight or not, he just don't want to make that fight. He want Errol Spence to fight Keith Thurman. So like I said before, you heard it here first. He might put the screws to Errol Spence one way or another. Because at the end of the day, Al Heyman, he did get Errol Spence out of a bind. Because I know what really happened behind that whole car crash and all that kind of stuff. But that's not for me to say. But I know I know the facts. I know what this really was all about. And all I can say is if you go against Al Heyman, it might not be cool. Might not be cool. Like I said, a lot of these dudes ignore certain things, just like when Deontay Wilder was basically referring to Al Heyman. Because keep in mind, they can't flat out say the dude's name because Al Heyman make them sign all them NDAs and all that stuff. But if everything goes good, you got to thank him. You got to say his name. So like I said before, all this stuff with the belts and all this junk, these sanctioning bodies is in bed with these dudes. And for the most part, they want to make in-house fights, whether they believe that they fighters can, beat somebody outside of the PBC perspective or whatever the case may be. They just want to make all these fights in-house. They don't want to share any potential pay-per-view revenue. They don't want to share any. They don't want to share none of that stuff. They don't really want to do no cross promotions. They don't want to do no purse bids. It's just like, hey, my fighter's not gonna fight your fighter if you're not affiliated with me unless it is absolutely 100% necessary. So like I said before, I'm not fooled by what happened with Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis. But the problem is, okay, based off the fact that Tank did the numbers that he did and he could write his own ticket, eventually, like I keep saying, this Hispanic and Mexican tour eventually is going to play out. Because as Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney, depending on what happens this coming Saturday, if he keeps winning, and then Shakur Stevenson keeps winning, the fans is gonna demand it. And like I said, Al Haymon stand by that model like Floyd Mayweather. Anybody but the brother. You go fight these Mexicans or these other non-black fighters that you believe that you have a 70-30 chance of beating. Listen, Shakur Stevenson and Tank Davis is a 50-50 fight. It's a legitimate 50-50 fight. Devin Haney and Tank is a 50-50 fight. But it's too much of a risk for Tank. And like I said before, it's too much of a risk for Tank via the PBC. Do I believe Tank could beat both Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson? Absolutely. Absolutely. But do I think they could beat Tank? Absolutely. But it's too big of a risk. And then they're not signed to the PBC. So basically, if it's for a belt or something, they want to control these belts to a certain degree. But I want you to understand something. I said this was going to get done a long time ago. I told you back in 2019, and I'm going to keep talking about this. I said that there was a plot in place to do this. That there wasn't going to be no real effort to make Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence. Okay? Because Terrence Crawford isn't a PBC fighter. I'm going to keep it 100. They don't want Terrence Crawford. I don't think Al Haymon ever wanted Terrence Crawford. Now, they wanted Canelo. That's why they offered Canelo that 3-fight, $100 million package. And keep in mind, Errol Spence was included in one of those packages to keep Canelo at the PBC. So how in the hell is they really focused on making a Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford fight when Errol Spence was offered as part of a package to keep Canelo with the PBC? Once again, nobody wants to have these conversations.